Patrick,
Good morning.
how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Dom?
I am good. I love that view behind you. It looks like you're in somewhere nice.
It's actually it's inspirational actually coming to the green space like this.
Yeah, it is
Helps the creative juices.
for sure. Well, and you need that, especially in your industry, as people are going to come to find out this podcast episode today or video, as people might be, because some people are going to watch this as a video, is very different. Is that fair to say? Do you think cabinet makers are going to expect to hear what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, the cool thing is as different as the headline may be, I think that people are going to find a lot of similarities and be able to pull out a lot of things that may be relevant to their own world, even though we're talking about a completely different set of apples here.
That's right. And maybe I can give us some context as to how you and I know each other and as to how you came to this podcast. And then I'll throw it back to you to tell us a little bit about your background, because it's crazy. It's not what I'd expect. And then we can get into this topic. Does that sound good?
Perfect.
So I know Patrick Ellis because he's a very strong businessman here in Vancouver. And he's very well known around here. If you don't know about him as far out as Chilliwack and Surrey, that's a totally different thing. Anybody local will get that joke. But here, he's super well known because he's a leader in his industry, which I'm still going to leave a secret for a moment. But Pat and I are in a business group together called Entrepreneurs Organization. And we happened to be sitting next to each other when we were talking about that global commodities trading guy was presenting to us. And at the break, Patrick and I started talking about his background with what's now become called lean manufacturing, which is the optimization of manufacturing processes to make things smarter, faster, better, leaner, cheaper, more efficient. How's that for a start?
That's a great intro.
I don't want to give away all the juice that you've got on your side because you've got a cool story.
Great. Well, why don't we start off with because it's a very important start to my journey was shortly after university, getting involved in the automotive manufacturing sector in Ontario, and I was working in the GM Suzuki joint venture plant just outside London, Ontario. We made about 200,000 vehicles a year, and it was a 50-50 joint venture. So the deal was GM would take care of the administrative financial end of things, and Suzuki would take care of the production side. So what that meant was we actually had under the same roof a very Japanese approach to production, but with a partner who is 50% of their stake in it, who was absolutely non-Japanese. So me, as a young student, so to speak, it was a tremendous opportunity to see the oil hit the water on an hourly basis.
Really?
Yeah, it was really, really great learning. But from my side, I was in the purchasing department, and I was buying about $500 million a year in parts. And in that, particularly the Japanese way, purchasing is fully integrated into the production side of things. I was interfacing with design engineers as well as on the production floor a lot.
Right.
So a lot of the processes that was going on around me on the manufacturing side, even though I was in an office, we had to understand the Japanese approach to manufacturing.
I think that's one of the similarities that immediately caught me in the first part of our conversation. The people are going to be blown away when they hear what you do now, but they're going to love it because they're going to get some trivia they can tell with their buddies forever. But when you said purchasing integrated with manufacturing, that got my ear right away because, as you know, this podcast, this whole community is for people that are in the wood trades, right? So it's called Cabinet Maker Profit System, but whether they're architectural mill workers, whether they're making furniture, pool and billiards tables, doesn't matter what, they have that same scope. Purchasing is integrated in manufacturing. Actually, the whole thing is integrated. And we've got some overlays that you might be familiar with as well, which is family business, partnerships, supply chain, dealing with customers at one level, dealing with vendors at another level, dealing with transportation. It's all out there.
Yeah, absolutely, Dom. And it's interesting. You had mentioned that the cabinet makers who are your core audience, and as we talked a little bit about that, I came to realize that indeed, philosophy that I've learned over the years is it doesn't matter actually what we are doing. If we are entrepreneurs, if we have started our own business, whether it be we're making widgets or it's on the softer side, consulting or what have you. The bottom line is the realities, the pains that I feel are exactly the same as what the cabinet maker down the road is feeling. And therefore, even though maybe the subject lines that we're about to dive into going forward here are perhaps under different headings, the reality and the truth behind them, the approaches we need to take to them, and the both sides of the journey, the ups and the downs, are actually shared. Our DNA is actually very, very close.
That's right. Yeah. And I think the entrepreneur side is something some people are very uncomfortable saying, the word entrepreneur. They're still okay saying business owner. But the other thing you and I talked about was craft to craft, because we're in the craft industry here, right? Like we make things. Our listeners are really good with their hands and really good with people, and they make stuff that people love. I always like to say that the things that these listeners and viewers make is the last thing people see before they go to bed. The first thing they see when they get up.
Nice.
Your business is everything in between.
Indeed. But speaking of craft, I am absolutely immersed in the craft industry. Craft is actually is an adjective that we quite often put onto whether it be our business cards or onto our discussions about what I am doing now.
Should we tell everybody finally, we're 10 minutes into this podcast. Patrick, what kind of craft are you in, Patrick Ellis?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that, Tom.
Yeah.
After the automotive, I realized that I really wanted to. I had a little bit of, I've got a strong background in Japanese, so I wanted to go back to Japan and spend a few years there really honing my craft, if I could say, about which ultimately would lead to a cultural and a language bridge between Canada and Japan. So when I was over in Japan, working there, I fell in love with a beverage that no Canadians were familiar with, and that was premium sake. And so when I came back to Canada and started what was originally an export business, I very quickly realized that, wow, nobody is doing, meaning I'm not able to buy any craft premium sake here on this side of the world. If nobody else is doing it, then darn it, it'll have to be me. So I started to import craft premium sake at that point. It was like 2 years ago.
22 years ago?
Yeah.
Wow. So craft premium sake, what's the warmth? How warm does that sake need to be, Patrick?
Thank you. First of all, what we'll do is we'll remove the word warm from a description about premium sake. You want to keep your premium sake about as warm as you'll keep a nice Chardonnay. In other words, like any good white wine, you'll want to enjoy it chilled.
So I've learned a lot from you about the world of sake, which I did not expect. Anybody who's not watching this on video will be surprised, because when you see Patrick on video or a picture of you, you're definitely not Japanese. And so when you came out as a sake expert, my head was off my neck. Like, what? But you are so passionate about sake and the production. And I've seen your video numerous times now on that whole production scope. And that actually rung through my mind as well, because it's very similar to what our listeners do, is they take so much pride in what they're building. But really quickly, because I found this very interesting, why was sake served warm anyway? Tell us a little bit about that history so that everybody's got some great trivia.
Right. Well, I liken it actually to, the sake that originally came here was produced out of efficiencies and value, low priced. So quite often maybe a lesser grade rice would be used, and it would be treated in let me just say the most efficient fashion. In other words, the goal, let's make some alcohol here. And I remember back when I was in university, we didn't have big budgets, of course, as students. So if we did want to drink on the weekend, we would grab a bottle of the cheapest red wine we could. And in order to make it palatable, we would throw it in the freezer just to round out those really rough edges.
Yeah.
I think that probably historically there's never been an actual direct line to it, but I think that there probably was some some people that put together some dots and realized, hey, if we heat this stuff up, it just goes down a little bit easier. But like a cheap red wine and a lower price sake, if you want to drink a nice red wine, you don't need to put it in the freezer.
Right.
You can enjoy it at the right temperature, or let's say white wine. You want to chill it nicely, and with a premium sake that typically is about 3 to 4 times the price of the other sake or the original sake, let's say. 3 to 4 times the price, which is not outrageous when we compare a bottle of Berry Jack that we used to pound back in school to now a nice VQA wine.
Right.
Coming in at around 4 times the price, but well worth it. Why? Because life is too short.
Yeah. Well, life is too short. And I've been part of your sake tasting events, and they're mind-blowing. Sake is so good.
It is.
And I don't mean that from a crutch perspective, from I need it to go to sleep, but it is tasty stuff.
Dom, you're right. And the only, the why did it take 20 years? Everybody says I feel like that rock band, the overnight sensation.
Yeah.
We're kind of the popular kid on the block now. Everybody's buzzing about it. Like, Dom, you can now enjoy premium sake in major hotel lounges downtown that have got nothing to do with Japanese food. Like, it really has come into its own as being, okay, we got red wine, white wine, bubbles, and rosé. Well, you know what? And there should also be a sake on our list too. It's just sort of become daily.
So your company is Blue Note Wines, and yet sake is how you started, right?
Correct. That's right.
So cool. I like cool stories, and a lot of our listeners are into sports.
Okay.
Can you tell us your origin story, your birth story, and the sports overlay? I'm hoping you know the story I'm talking about here.
Yeah, well, it's important. I mean, partnerships are key to, or having the right people on your team, if we're going to use the sports analogy. So yeah, you recall I came back to Canada. I initially needed to pay some bills, so I started off with exporting stuff, and I brought in a very small shipment of this premium sake to get going. Unfortunately, my passion, my vision didn't match up with anybody else here. Nobody was interested in. And the argument was, why would anybody pay 4 times the price for something, that's that gives an impression of, just being, hot shot kind of beverage. Nonetheless, I persisted. Finally, we got into a restaurant. I think they just relented because they were getting tired of my vigor and passion about it. So they said, "Hey, fine. Listen, we'll just buy a darn case from you, and if you promise never to come back again." I said, "Wonderful, great. We've got our first sale." And this is starting out with 7 cases. So I sold 1/7 of my initial shipment.
Wow.
So I think I'm off to the races. But again, this place was not confident at all. But Dom, they called me back about a week later, and they said, "Hey, have you got any more of that stuff?" And I said, "Yeah, I do. I'm
6 cases in my closet."
But yeah, tell me exactly. Tell me. Let me check under my desk in the warehouse right now. But I said, "Tell me what popped here. It's I'd like to learn. Like who's buying this?" And they said, "Well, actually, we had an extraordinary night the other night. As you know, Mark Messier just joined the Canucks." And I said, "Yeah," and he said, "Then the Rangers are in town, his old team." And of course, one of his old teammate buddies from years before was playing, and so they decided, for old time's sake, let's go out for sushi after a bite to eat, the way we used to do in New York. So Mark and Wayne Gretzky and the rest of the other pals show up at this Japanese restaurant, and they sat down and they said, "Just bring us your best sake." So they literally ripped through the entire case, which ain't cheap. They ripped through that entire case.
Those guys don't care.
For the first night. And so I, as I told you, me and my partners, Wayne Gretzky, he's a silent partner, by the way. He doesn't bother me.
Official taste tester.
Stuff. He lets me do my own thing. But Wayne and I, we kicked off the premium sake business in Canada with that.
Yeah, that's such a great story. And, a lot of our guys that are listening to this have such humble, normal beginnings. And it's that break that they got that helped them out, because they worked hard for every single deal they got. And they're still working hard for every single deal, still trying to delight the customer, please everybody, and waiting for that big break. You just don't know where it's going to come, but you have to go out every single day with your best face, going to get that great deal that's going to lead to more.
Yeah.
Great.
Absolutely true, Don. But I think that if I was to be put on the spot and asked, Patrick, so what actually happened there? I mean, that's great. So you happen to have
Good
a guy
story.
who's pretty
Yeah.
good at playing hockey, that's a well-known face, blah blah blah. But really, what the story was it was actually me, like your audience. I deal with a craft product. I'm passionate about it. I know it comes from quality. I mean, and I'm talking about, in my world, 20 generations. I'm talking about producers that have been doing this for since the 12th century. So there's a tremendous amount of history and legacy involved, entrenched in this as well. But let's just bring it back to the base level, where we're talking about, I am excited to be talking about something I can take a tremendous amount of pride in, that I know is made by true craftspeople. So that's what I do. That is what your audience does. But what happened is when I made that, when that first case was sold and the guy came back to me, I did not turn around and sell him on the next case. Well, he was coming back to me anyways. I had to turn things around, which has probably been one of the best things that I've honed over the years, and that was listening. So as soon as he came back to me with that, hey, I got a repeat order, I didn't turn it into a celebration. It was immediately, why? So in other words, I need to understand what you are, why that happened. Because if I understand your world, what is driving your customers, then I'm able to then hone things going forward. And actually, what was born out of that, apart from the fun Wayne Gretzky story, was it actually turned out to be, we actually really, if it wasn't Wayne, we're not sure how it would have happened, which then led me to connect a few dots going, hey, wait a sec, that's absolutely true. Your staff that is on the floor supposedly selling my product doesn't know anything about it. I need to develop tools for them, blah, blah, blah. So
Right.
It came out of that first part about asking asking my customers probing questions. I think that was probably the key turning point.
That's actually a great takeaway for us, because I missed it in your initial story, because you actually said that when all the bottles sold that night when the hockey team came in, and then you got a call back from the gentleman that owned the restaurant. I heard you say that, but I didn't click in about why why did this happen? How can I help you? And I think that's important for our industry as well, because asking that simple question, let's say it's just a simple residential install, and Mr. and Mrs. Brown bought your kitchen. Why? At some point, asking them, why did you buy from me? I'm going to learn things where they're going to say, you know what, you showed up on time, or you just seem to be the right person. We thought we could trust you. Those are clues the market is giving you, saying, okay, keep doing more of that. If showing up on time got me this deal, that has nothing to do with the machinery I've got, the office I lease, the truck I drive. None of that matters. Showing up on time, that's the basis of business that I'm trying to beat. I can do that.
Right.
I can do that all day long.
Yeah, exactly.
I need to know why.
Exactly. And one of the things that I like to use is when I'm asking the why, I like to ask three whys in a row, because the first why may be just an ego satisfier. In other words, they say, oh, because you're a great guy or whatever. So I could sit there and I could wrap myself up in that complimentary blanket and call it a day and go home and go, great, I've been a great guy. But if I say, well, why, not you're a great guy, but, because you showed up on time. Oh, then I would say, why is that important to you? If you ask why about 3 times, then you're going to get to some revelations that larger companies that pay tens of thousands of dollars in market research typically can't even get to the point of. But it's through that one-on-one engagement where you've got this one audience of this one person that you're actually able to get on a more intimate level by just saying, oh, well, why? And why? And then why again? Then you're going to learn some stuff that your competitors aren't aren't savvy enough or too ego driven to be just going, oh, okay, I've got an answer, I'm going to move on now.
Right.
Probe a little bit deeper, you might have some stuff to take home.
You see how much real estate we're covering today? We started talking about Japanese manufacturing efficiency. Then we moved to sake, craft sake, and now you're doing sales training. Patrick Ellis has wide shoulders. This is what we got. I love it. I love it.
I just got a lot of excitement. And when you talk about the Japanese manufacturing, the other part of it is something that after when I was in the automotive side, training my suppliers to what is now called the lean way. Obviously, I was living and breathing it myself, and still do. So that concept of Kaizen or constant improvement, that again comes out of, oh, okay, that's great that I've got that initial case sale. It's nice that we're getting a repeat order, but that is just mechanics. That's why we wake up in the morning. What I want to know is how can we make it better? How can we make it better? Oh, okay, so your staff doesn't know anything. Great, let's sit down and talk to the staff. And hey, staff, what are you doing? Well, the fact is it's really nice to know all this stuff, Patrick, but we don't have time to stand at a table and give them an education that you're imparting on us for this half an hour.
Right.
Great. Okay. What would make it easier for you? Well, we just don't have the time. Great. So how about if I created that time for you? In other words, how about if I put it onto a little information sheet that you just dropped at the table? A lot of visuals, keep it really easy. People are out, they're not out to read a book. They just want to have something fun. Yeah. So how about if I did the talking for you, even though I'm not there? Oh, that would be great. And we just kind of built it from there.
You find your way through it.
Exactly.
I have one brilliant cabinet maker, architectural woodworker. Do you know what they do? A brass plaque goes on the inside of the door above the sink.
Brilliant.
Just thinking about what you said there, just a simple brass plaque. Congratulations to so-and-so. And I'm not going to give away all their secrets, but just a simple brass plaque. So what happens? That one above, you open it all the time, right? You're always opening that one.
Exactly.
Guest comes over and they're like, oh, where's the cups? What's this? Oh, those are the guys that made your cabinets? Oh, tell me about them.
Absolutely.
It's just that hidden little, you open it a million times in the lifetime of that house. Because otherwise, I don't know who did your cabinets. Who did your architecture millwork? Right. How am I ever going to know that?
Right.
Ever. I'm never going to know that. What is a brass plaque engraved for a customer cost?
Right. Exactly. And you just look around town and you can see other mega successful companies in, again, other industries. They don't have the luxury of being able to put their brass plaque onto their roofs. But what do they do the entire time they're doing the job, before and after? Penfolds. They have the sign out there saying, hey, this is what we're doing. We're doing this. So it's kind of like they got the plaque there for as long as they possibly can, before, during, and after. And it's a way of pointing to it. In other words, because you have the stage and the audience is a given, why not put it out there? Why not put your name or your difference, the difference that you're offering. Put it out there so that it gives a chance for it to reach as many people as possible. And the great thing about all these ideas are they're almost free, right?
Well, that's what exactly. It doesn't cost anything, but the value is astronomical.
Mm-hmm.
One of the exercises I like to do with my teams is when we're trying to figure out a clever way of doing something, I'll have a meeting with my team sitting around the table and say, here's the challenge. Let's say it's a marketing challenge. Here's the thing we've got to do. Let's get to work thinking about it. And you have a budget of 0. So break into teams. Let's figure out how we can do this for 0. And what do I hear from my team? Oh my God, Dom, you're killing me. We can't do this for 0. Okay, great. Let's think about what we can do for 0. And then the ideas start popping up, right? So I'm on the flip chart or the whiteboard, taking down the notes. And then when they're exhausted with ideas, I then go back and I'll say, okay, now you have a budget. And I can see them like, okay, finally, I got a budget. And I say, you have $1. $1. And they're like, oh, well, hang on a second. If we had $1, you know what we could do? Is it $1 per customer, $1 per sale? So they start to pick it apart the way guys like you and me would, right? But I can't get them thinking that way unless I get them in that headspace. And the ideas are endless for $1, and they're endless at 0. endless.
And because of the fact, money is such a what's the word I'm looking for? Money is because it's so easy in terms of if let's say you were in the position of somebody giving you okay, you've got $5,000 budget here to do it. You're not going to be nearly as imaginative with it. Chances are you're going to be doing cookie cutter stuff, like let's say it's regarding promotion. Oh, well, let's put an ad in a newspaper or something like that. And therefore, what you are doing because of having that budget, because you've got that money, you aren't pressing yourself to come up with innovative ideas. Therefore, your solution is by definition not innovative. So by starving the ground a bit, by forcing you to begin in, let's say, in that desert, so to speak, you have to come up with innovative ideas in order to just make the dots connect. And by definition, at the end, it is now an innovative idea.
Right. I love it. We've covered a lot of ground here, but I'm going to take it another direction now. When we're almost, we're the better side of 40 minutes in, but this is a great interview so far. Really good. But I'm going to change gears for us because you've already mentioned two things that I've heard back from my audience that are very important to them. One was the whole lean conversation. And I think you've touched on that a bunch. But you said something unheard of here in North America. Unheard of. 20 generation business. I mean, we're happy if we get 2. And you've heard the shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves and 3 generation thing we have here in North America, right? Dad makes it good, passes it on to the kids. That kid maybe takes it into the ground, and the next generation is in shambles or in rebuild mode. Looking at it from the outside, what has impressed you about these multi-generation families to make them successful?
Great question. The reason why they are doing what they're doing. If you talk to a 20th generation guy, in other words, why do you get up every morning and do what you do? His response is not to make money. His purpose is much greater than that, and it is, and the overriding driving force is I am steward of my family's legacy. At all costs, I need to protect what my ancestors, my forefathers, laid the groundwork for me to be able to come in now and enjoy. In other words, there is a company that exists, so it's much more a profound sense of responsibility that is their overall purpose. So everything, and anytime we do have when we work our companies based on purpose, what we need to be doing is constantly be filtering our decisions through that purpose filter. In other words, is this in alignment with what my purpose is? These are what these multi-generational families do, is by checking that first. Is this for the good of the stewardship? Within that, they still take, certain risks. You need to be innovative. Whether it be during the samurai era of the 1700s or whether or not we're in 1995 or 2020. You still need to be taking risks in order to move things forward and what have you, but it is constantly grounded by that greater purpose.
Okay, I'm going to end. This is a fantastic line of thought that we're going through here. So I'm going to take us to the end on this. Have you seen multi-generation families where the patriarch, I imagine, or it could be the matriarch, whatever it is, the father figure, the leader figure, has 2 sons?
Yes.
Which son? Like what are they doing to equip that next generation to be successful? And if you have this insight, where have you seen it fail and where have you seen it rock? Where have you seen it go great?
Mm-hmm. I think the just generally speaking, where it has failed is where they have taken the cookie cutter approach of designating the eldest to be the successor. And then once the eldest actually was thrown into the pool, the reason for choosing eldest, again, keep in mind, we're talking about Japan here. So, tremendous amount of tradition, it will only be matriarchal if there are no males, that successors and what have you. But it will get back to a male lineage as soon as possible. In other words, in the next generation or whatever. So the decision to go with a male and then the most senior male is what drives a lot of them. However, you can see those failures. Now, the smart companies will recognize that early on. They'll fail fast and actually and remove that eldest son, put him into another function, and put in the right person. Because again, we're going through, even though we've got tradition and all these other things that may have guided them to choose the oldest son, at the end of the day, their purpose is to be stewards, to make sure that this multi-generational family continues successful. So that is the overriding thing. So even though the tradition drove us to, okay, we're choosing Johnny Sr. first, guess what, Johnny? You're just not going to be able to be the steward when I'm gone. Got to remove you, and we've got to put in number 2 son. Or in exceptional cases, the daughter.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they find a way to do that respectfully, to have them in a board position or advisory position or something with honor, something that's still.
Exactly.
Yeah. I wonder what we can learn about that here in North America, because I've also seen that first son, and our industry is primarily it's male dominated. It just is. There are some women coming into it, and they're wonderful craftspeople, but it's male dominated for sure. But that automatic default is, I'm going to pass it on to my son. I'm going to pass it on to my nephew because he joined me. But are they the right person? Being a tech, for us, being good on the tools is not being good in the office.
So true.
And then even being in the office doesn't mean being good in the office. You've got to be good in the office. And then clean lifestyle, healthy habits, and all those things to be a leader. Important as well. And I'm sure you've heard stories of people, just their personal lives overtaking their business lives. So there's lots there, but it puts a lot of pressure on me as the senior, the outgoing dad figure, if you will, to make that choice. And it can be tough.
It can be very tough. And therefore it also, that decision begins really from the cradle. So the nurturing of the next in command, if it truly is part of the vision, it begins not in a heavy-weighted or responsibility way, but it does begin with nuances when they're 5, when they're 7, when they're 10, when they're 15, and so on and so forth. And ultimately, because it's done right, you still need to have that once it comes to that point, whether it be out of school. And they're about to join in the fold, which typically in Japan, if you are part of a multi-generational family, you do not leave school and go into your company. You go out to another industry, and again, it's purposeful. Like, in other words, you want to go into either a competitor, not to learn their stuff, but just so that you are in as an employee and you're not treated with kid gloves because you're the prince in waiting. Or you go to a completely unrelated industry just so you can, your eyes are much more wide open when you go into other things.
It drives innovation as well, because 20 generations, you're going to need innovation. One generation, you need innovation. You can't just have a clone of the previous leader. That's
exactly it.
Work either, right?
Yeah.
Well, Patrick, who these people listening thought, sake? But it's been the most interesting interview, widest ranging. And for those of you listening who might still be worried about using the title entrepreneur to define yourself, both Patrick and I view ourselves as entrepreneurs. Yes, Patrick?
Here.
Let me ask you this question. How long do you remember a time when you were uncomfortable calling yourself an entrepreneur?
No, no. But mind you, I did my first gig when I was 6 years old, and it's just been kind of there. Despite the fact when I did join a larger company, but it was tremendous learning for me. No, I guess I just don't get hung up on labels. If it helps make it clearer for somebody else to understand what I do or what I'm made of, then you call me an entrepreneur or
it was
I get called a dummy as much as I get called on.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, that's just part of the game. I will share with you though that it was very difficult for me to honestly, without feeling like I was a fake, to say that I was an entrepreneur. That shift for me was belief based, really big. I was a business owner, no problem. Business owner all day long, just like you. Businesses in high school, I installed Christmas lights on homes. I made I did stuff. But to call myself an entrepreneur, that felt really hard for me for a long time.
Dom, when you talk about it, in the context of, like you say, feeling like a fake or what have you, I think that is an inherent part of all of our journey. And the reason is because once we get into it and we get beyond the first hurdle, you look around and you go, oh my God, there's just so much I don't know. It seems everybody around me does know. Am I really qualified? Am I, and then you go through that thought process, right?
Yeah. But that's a mind shift. And so I think the conversation that you and I have had today is from an entrepreneur perspective. And I hope our listeners, our viewers, are getting that. It's not about sake. It's not about architectural millwork. It's not about making custom pool tables. It's about the business of business, which is where we all come at it from. And if we're open to it, these lessons are all around. I mean, you jumped from doing production in a Japanese facility to a Mark Messier, Wayne Gretzky story to lean manufacturing to multi-generation business observations. And all of them were in context with everything that I think my listeners and viewers need.
True.
Love it. Yeah. Hey, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate it. We're at an hour on this podcast. Wow. I know, it went fast, didn't it?
It felt like 10 minutes.
Oh, good. Well, I won't make any jokes. Patrick Ellis, if somebody wants to get in touch with you and learn about sake, because you know about sake, if somebody wants to get in touch with you and understand, Japan or, how do we get in touch with you if we want to?
Yeah, our website is, my company name is Blue Note Wines. So bluenotewines.com, there's an S on the wine. Bluenotewines.com will get you there. But if you're just curious about premium sake in general, I'd strongly suggest we've got our third annual sake fest it's downtown Vancouver in September on the 27th of September. And we will have probably over 500 generations of family craft producers there. There will be there'll be well over 100 sakes that would probably cost you in a wine store around maybe $40-50 up to, we'll be pouring some that are about $200 a bottle. So if you want to come in and just explore it, it's a wonderful place to just get lost. If you've ever been to a beer festival or a wine festival, it's the same style. It's about 2 or 3 hours where you can just walk around and just discover different types of sakes that are out there. I will give you a warning that the first 2 years with no advertising, the tickets sold out rather quickly. So, but it's a great way to start.
So if anybody's looking for a reason to come to beautiful, sunny, subtropical Vancouver, Canada in September, bring your spouse, come up here for a boys' weekend or whatever for a sake tasting, contact Patrick Ellis, Blue Note Wines, bluenotewines.com, and get your tickets there. I might have to check it out. That's the day before my birthday.
I'd love to raise a toast to you. Like we say in Japanese, kanpai.
Kanpai. It's always good to know how to cheer in multiple languages. I think that's a fun fireside game we all like.
Absolutely.
Patrick Ellis, thank you so much. We could just keep talking, but at some point, we have to give the internet back to everybody else. Thanks for joining me, Patrick. I really appreciate it. For those of you listening, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, because I know you have busy lives, and I hope you found this entertaining, because I did, and educational. Patrick, have a great day.
Thank you, Dom. Good to see you.